I'm Tinyola today. Welcome to Real Estate Chat with ESV OLALEKAN ABODERIN. Kindly follow us on all our social media handles at REST Publication. Thank you.
Today we'll be discussing project initiation as a key factor for project success. Everybody embarks on projects, either for whatever purpose, some for home ownership, some because of business requirement, and some because of economic need for capital gain, where the objective can be for immediate capital return or for streams of income flow. This will be our focus today. We'll be considering project initiation from the perspective of property development with the sole objectives of making money, making returns, financial gains. This financial gain, either in terms of streams of income flow or in terms of capital gain. In which case, for financial gain, lump sum will be we are targeting property development for sale. Where, however, is for stream of income flow, then we'll be discussing about property development as an investment property to be held in investment portfolio for income generation. Now, irrespective of whatever the objective will be for initiating a project or embarking on a project, it is important to ensure that the project is properly initiated. We'll be discussing today on what is the essence of project initiation and why do we really need to initiate projects. To start with, what do we mean by project initiation? Project phases start with project initiation. That is the first phase of project delivery, project initiation. And it is a process that will be able to allow us to see through the project delivery, right from the beginning to the end, because it's going to bring to fore exactly what we have to do and how we have to deliver this project. So as the first step in project delivery process is highly essential, because it's like having a clear vision, clear view of what the project will entail and how the project will be achieved. So project initiation is highly essential. Now, in doing project initiation, we tend to answer some questions. One of these questions is, why actually do we require these projects? A lot of people embark on projects out of intuitions, out of my friend is doing it, I want to do it. Whereas there must be cogent reason, specific goal to achieve in embarking on projects. So with proper project initiation, we'll be able to answer this question of why is the project required. It's not every project that is required that can be feasible. So it's therefore important to equally consider the project feasibility. In project initiation, we will look at, is the project really feasible? And there are processes around this. The project feasibility must come first, right from the time the project is initiated. In fact, it's part of project initiation. So project initiation answers the question of project feasibility. Just as equally, how do we achieve these projects? We have a clear vision, clear view, know the paths to follow, what to execute. What do we want to achieve? What are the deliverables before we can say this work is done? Why we have proper project initiation. And what will be the outcome of the project we want to embark on. These are questions that project initiation provide answers to, and right from the first phase of project life cycle. Dear viewers, we'll be right back after this short break. So, with project initiation, there are things that are involved. Project initiation involves quite a lot of things. Why we pursue proper project initiation, the first thing is that we'll be able to establish the project idea. The project idea must be clearly defined and must be well articulated and be seen as meeting the goal, the project goal, or the project need. Again, project initiation will involve development of business case. Business case. We'll be discussing all these one by one as we proceed in our discussion. Again, another thing in project initiation is preparation of project charter. We will equally have to identify stakeholders, project stakeholders, and equally project team will have to be established. We need to equally have project office and know a process of reviewing our project initiation phase to be sure that it has provided all necessary answers to all questions. And on the final note, there will be need for approval of this project initiation phase. With this, we'll come up with what we call project initiation documents. So with project initiation documents, it's a very good position to take off to continue with all other projects, all other phases in the project life cycle. So it's important for every investors, for every developers to ensure that his project is properly initiated. And with experience, it becomes easier. But we need to emphasize here that without proper project initiation, the developer or the investor will just be wallowing. It will be like lack of direction. And that's why most often we embark on projects only to get to the middle and feel that we have not done some things properly well. Or and feel that we have to increase the scope of the project. Or and feel that we have to increase the number of floors because the market can actually support more than the number of floors, more than the number of units that we are proposed to do. When we have proper project initiation, all this would have been done, well articulated, well analyzed. We see the project right from the beginning, we see it through the end, at high level, subject to progressive elaboration. We see all this. So, my emphasis here is that every project, even if it's for home ownership, should start with project initiation. That is, of course, the standard. And what does it take to initiate projects? Initiating projects in our environment here, unfortunately, what we believe in initiating projects is coming up with the project idea, either well articulated or not, either substantiated or not, that well defined or not. I will explain all this. You have the project idea, and you just come up with design. We take jumping at designing and coming up with good architectural design, probably 3D, including 3D or animated 3D, and coming up with marketing collaterals, like promotional materials. These are what we consider as project initiation. That's not, right? They are part of what we have to do because we have to enter the market. But at the same time, it's a complete deviation from what a proper project initiation process is all about. So on this note, viewers, please don't go away. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. We continue our discussion on project initiation. Before the short break, part of what I mentioned is the need for high-level project concept to be able to see through what the project will take. Now, what do we mean by high-level project concepts? I mean subject to progressive elaboration. I mean, high-level project concept is a general overview of the project, even if the specifics are not yet available. But as the project planning continues, all these specifics will be evolving, and we get to know more and the details about all these specifics. And it's very important to have a holistic view of the project, to know what the project will be, what it will require. Even if it is from just as simple as having a 2 or 3 bedroom bungalow. So from there, we'll move to what the project idea is all about. Project idea from the perspective of real estate development. I mean property development. Either you want to do site and service scheme, or you want to do mass housing, or you want to do apartments, high-rise structures, property development as an investor. how do you generate the project idea? How should we be informed about the project idea? Jokingly, I always emphasize that when we say property development starts with conception of idea, when you have a dream, right? That this dream is not by sleeping on bed and you have a dream, but it's by seeing through the markets and realizing a gap to fill, a demand, a need to provide for. That is the project, that is the idea that we are talking about, particularly when the project is meant for income generation or for capital gain. That is, the project is to be supplied into the market. So the project idea must come from the market. It's very, very important. It should not be out of intuitions. It should not be out of personal feeling. The market should dictate what the project idea will be. So conceiving project idea, and it's not only limited to real estate anyway, any forms of product whatsoever, it will start from project, because every production will start with design. And it means there must have been a project idea that has been translated to blueprints before it's not passed through the process of delivery and becomes a product. So equally in property development, the idea must come from the market. So a takeaway from this is that for project initiation, generating the business idea, that idea, the project proposal or development proposal must originate from the market. We must unnecessarily identify that demand gap in the market that we want to provide for. But even in generating this idea from the market, what are the likely scenarios that we'll face? There are three common scenarios. The first scenario is a case of a site in search of a use. A case of a site in search of a use. I will explain. The second scenario is a case where you have use, a case of a use in search of a site. I repeat, a case of a use in search of a site. And the third scenario is a situation where you have a case of investments in search of use and site. What do we mean by investment here? We mean a case of capital in search of use and site. These are the common scenarios that we face in initiating property development. What this means is that what we bring the idea up, why you feel that there is need for development, will be that see that there is a use in search of site, or there is a site in search of use, or there is a capital line value that you really need to commit to economic use for necessary gains. And that is a use, an investment or a capital in search of use and site. These are most scenarios that we face, either as professional in the built environment or even as investors. You will fall in one or two or three of these categories. So, dear viewers, let's pick the first leg of it, which is a case of a site in search of a use. To bring it down to our level, our understanding, a site in search of a use means there is already an existing parcel of land. The land is already existing. Now, what will be the use that land must be committed to, or what use should the land be developed for, such that you will be able to optimize. Note my words, please. I don't say maximize. Optimize the return. So that you'll be able to optimize the return. So because I said I don't say maximize, because it's not in all cases that maximum return actually means optimum return. As we proceed in our discussion, we'll be getting to know the difference between maximum return and optimum return, particularly when we get to aspect of viability analysis. At this point, is enough for us to hold it that we have the site, which is the available parcel of land. We now want to determine what use we optimize our gain, what use will give us optimum return in developing the land. That is what we have to do in a situation or under the scenario where we have a site in search of a use. Now, how do we determine the use? That will give us optimum return. In the asset balance, that is simply a case of highest and best use analysis. Highest and best use analysis. Now, what do we mean by highest and best use analysis? We mean a use that is practically feasible or possible, that is legally possible, and that will give us the maximum or possible return. These are what we call highest and best use. Now, highest and best use is a function of the location of site. It's a function of the site attributes. It's a function of the development terrain in the location. And what contributes to the highest and best use of every site is what we call the use capacity of the site. Viewers, let me draw your attention to an aspect here. In construction, we have what we call bearing capacity of land. That is a technical assessment, technical attributes of land, ability of the land to support whatever we are proposing as to impose on the land in terms of load. That is bearing capacity. It's different from use capacity. Use capacity is an economic assessment. The capacity of the land economically to support the use that we are proposing. And every parcel of land relative to its location has its use capacity. Every parcel of land relative to its location has its use capacity. We are saying that capacity varies from one location or the other. From one location to the other, you have varying capacity. And what that means, therefore, is that for different uses relative to different locations, the performance of use will vary. So it's therefore important for professional, particularly estate surveyors and valuers, to be brought into project initiation. At this point, we can see the relevance of having a team of professionals to handle our project initiation. Because it's within the purview, the knowledge base of the estate surveyor and valuer to identify this use capacity, to assess the highest and best use, and to be able to advise us on what use will give us optimum return. Use giving optimum return is always subject to what we call approvability. It's not enough for the use to be to give optimum return if it will not conform with approval order. Of course, if there won't be planning or development approval for it, that would be a limitation on project feasibility. When we move to project feasibility, we'll be talking more about that. It only means that, well, the project is not feasible. It only means that that project is not going to be achievable. Hence, you cannot consider that as highest and best use for a site in search of a use. Let me come back a little. What I am trying to emphasize here is that when we have a parcel of land, any use that we will consider as highest and best use or representing highest and best use of that site will be that it's equally possible to obtain process and obtain planning approval for that kind of use, for that kind of development. Because without the planning approval, it means that project is not legally feasible. That's one of the indicators of legal feasibility. So on this note, dear investors or aspiring property owner, let's pay attention to the scenario of a case of site in search of use and know how to articulate our project initiation, generating business or project idea in this circumstance, so as we'll be able to optimize our return and we're able to have effective use of our resources. I always say, whenever I find myself in project team, that land will sit down and you commit resources to it, it will not complain. If your use is not right, it will not complain. So long you commit your resources, it's only when it enters the market, then you realize that you have actually missed an important thing to do. So dear viewers, it's important for you to ensure proper project initiation. And also, even if you have the land already, there are circumstances, so many reasons why you could have gotten the land before you are thinking of what to use it for. You know, today we have a cooperative society sharing land or selling land to their members. You might equally have gotten the land through inheritance or by gift or what have you. Or you have participated in buying the land just because you are doing land banking, or that you want to just use that land to preserve and keep your money. Now you are thinking of developing the land. So how do you come up with your project idea? That idea that will give you optimum return must therefore be the highest and best use of the site. Thank you.